Hey everyone, I'm Mike. I met my wife, Laura, about 6 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding. She was the maid of honor, and I was one of the groomsmen. We hit it off immediately. She was funny, charming, and had this incredible energy that drew me in right away. That we started dating soon after, and within 2 years, we were married. Our honeymoon was magical. We went to this fancy resort in Hawaii. Everything seemed perfect. We laughed, we loved, and we made plans for our future together. Fast forward to now, and things have taken a dark turn. Laura has always been a bit high maintenance, but lately, her behavior has become downright bizarre. She's constantly on her phone, snapping at me over little things, and she's been spending more and more time working late or going out with friends. At first, I brushed it off as stress from her job as a marketing manager, but deep down, something didn't feel right. It all came to a head last weekend when we decided to take a quick getaway to a nearby hotel to try and rekindle some of that lost spark. We checked into this swanky place downtown, and I was hoping for a relaxing weekend filled with good food, great sex, and maybe even some much-needed conversation, but things quickly went south. On the first night, Laura received a mysterious text that made her freeze. She quickly shoved her phone under the pillow and gave me a fake smile, saying she needed to freshen up. I didn't think much of it at the time, but something gnawed at me. Later that evening, while Laura was in the shower, I noticed her phone buzzing incessantly. My curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were multiple messages from someone named D, full of intimate details and plans to meet up later that night. One message stood out: "Can't wait to see you again tonight. Miss our time together." My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through more messages. They talked about meeting in secret, having sex, and how they couldn't get caught. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Was Laura cheating on me? With who? And why? I tried to calm myself down, thinking maybe I was jumping to conclusions. But then I saw something that made it undeniable: a picture of Laura kissing some guy passionately. The caption read, "Miss you already, baby." That's when it hit me: this wasn't just some random fling. This was serious. And the worst part? The guy she was with was an employee at the very hotel where we were staying. It was surreal, like some twisted nightmare. I sat there, stunned, trying to process everything. How could Laura do this to me? We had built a life together, shared so many memories, and now it was all unraveling because of her lies. When Laura came out of the bathroom, she noticed my pale face and the phone still clutched in my hand. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked genuinely scared. But then her expression shifted, and she put on her bitchiest tone yet. "What are you doing with my phone, Mike?" she demanded, crossing her arms. I stared at her, my voice shaking with rage. "Who the hell is he? And why do you have pictures of yourself kissing him?" Laura rolled her eyes, like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "Oh, for God's sake. It's nothing, Mike. Just some guy I met here. Nothing serious." "Nothing serious?" I repeated, incredulous. "You're having secret conversations about meeting up and having sex. How can you call that nothing?" She sighed dramatically, looking at me like I was the problem. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. You always do this jump to conclusions without even asking me first." Her nonchalance only fueled my anger. "So, explain it to me then. Who is he really? And don't lie to me, Laura. Not again." Laura stood there, arms crossed, her face a mask of defiance. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out how to spin this into something less damning. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook that easily. "Not this time." "All right, Mike," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "If you really want to know, E is just some guy I met here at the hotel. We've had a few drinks together, maybe flirted a bit. But it's nothing serious, and definitely not what you're imagining." I stared at her, dumbfounded. Was she seriously trying to downplay this? Flirting? Laura, I saw the pictures. You were kissing him. And those messages, they were about having sex. How do you explain that? She huffed, rolling her eyes again like I was being unreasonable. Okay, fine. So we kissed. Big deal. It didn't mean anything. And those messages? They were just playful banter. You're overreacting. My blood boiled. Overreacting? She was cheating on me, lying to my face, and now she was calling me crazy for confronting her about it? Overreacting? Laura, you're sleeping with another man. This isn't some harmless flirting. This is betrayal. She threw her hands up in exasperation. God, you're such a drama queen. Can't you just relax and enjoy our weekend? Why are you making everything so complicated? Her words stung, but they also made me realize something crucial: she didn't care. Or at least, she didn't care enough to stop lying. Her nonchalance only fueled my anger further. Relax? Enjoy our weekend? I repeated, my voice trembling with rage. You expect me to just ignore the fact that you're cheating on me? That you're sleeping with some random employee from this hotel? No, Laura. I can't just relax. I can't just pretend everything's okay when it's clearly not. Laura sighed dramatically, as if dealing with me was the biggest burden in the world. Fine, Mike. If it means that much to you, I'll end things with him. But don't act like you're the victim here. You're always so controlling, always trying to dictate what I can and can't do. I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. Controlling? Laura, I'm not the one who's been lying and sneaking around behind your spouse's back. I'm not the one who's been having sex with someone else. You're the one who's betrayed me, and yet you're acting like I'm the bad guy here. She glared at me, her eyes narrowing into slits. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, none of this would have happened. Maybe if you actually cared about what I wanted, I wouldn't have needed to turn to someone else. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was she really trying to blame me for her infidelity? For her lies and deceit? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, your solution to feeling neglected is to cheat on me? To have sex with someone else because you feel ignored? That's your brilliant plan? Laura shrugged, her expression hardening. It's not like that, Mike. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I shot back, my voice filled with bitterness. You cheated on me. You lied to me. And now you're trying to twist everything around to make it seem like it's my fault. Well, guess what? It's not. This is all on you, Laura. Your choices, your actions. For a moment, she looked taken aback, like she hadn't expected me to push back so hard. But then her face hardened again, and she gave me a cold, calculating look. Fine, Mike. If that's how you want to play it, then go ahead. Leave. See if I care. I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. Could she really be so callous? So indifferent to the destruction she'd caused? Get out, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. Laura blinked, clearly caught off guard by my sudden calmness. What? I said, get out. I can't even look at you right now. For a second, I thought she might argue, maybe even try to twist things around again. But then something shifted in her eyes. She must have realized how far gone this situation was. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. As soon as she was gone, I collapsed onto the bed, burying my face in my hands. My mind was racing, replaying every moment of our relationship in my head. Had I missed signs? Was I blind to what was happening right under my nose? I felt sick to my stomach, and anger began to bubble up inside me. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. I thought back to the nights when Laura would come home late, claiming she'd been stuck in traffic or at some work event. I remembered the way she'd flinch whenever I tried to kiss her, the way she'd avoid my touch. It all made sense now. Every lie, every excuse, it was all part of her cover-up, but the worst part was the betrayal. Not just from Laura, but from this mystery guy too. He'd been working at the hotel, someone I trusted implicitly. And yet, he'd been sleeping with my wife behind my back. The thought made me sick to my stomach that I sat there for what felt like hours, trying to process everything. My heart was heavy, weighed down by anger, sadness, and confusion. How was I supposed to move forward from this? Could I ever trust anyone again after this? Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I drifted off into a restless sleep. When I woke up the next morning, Laura still hadn't returned. I checked my phone, no messages, no missed calls. It was like she'd disappeared off the face of the earth. That's when I realized I had a choice to make. I could either confront her again, demand answers, and try to salvage what was left of our marriage, or I could walk away. The idea of giving up on us hurt, but the thought of staying with someone who'd betrayed me so deeply hurt even more. I woke up the next morning with a pounding headache and an even heavier heart. Laura hadn't come back to the hotel room, and my phone was eerily silent. No texts, no missed calls, just an empty void where my wife used to be. It felt surreal, like I was living in some twisted alternate reality where everything I thought I knew about my marriage had been turned upside down. I got out of bed, feeling groggy and disoriented, and made my way to the bathroom. As I splashed cold water on my face, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, my skin pale, and there were dark circles under my eyes from lack of sleep. I barely recognized the man staring back at me. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. We were supposed to be happy. We were supposed to have this perfect life together. But now, all that was left was a shattered mess of lies, betrayal, and broken trust. As I dried my face, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it quickly, hoping against hope that it might be Laura, reaching out to apologize or explain herself. But when I saw the name flashing on the screen, my stomach dropped. It wasn't Laura. It was her friend, Jessica. Jessica was Laura's best friend since college, the kind of person who always seemed to know what was going on in Laura's life before anyone else did. She was also the type of person who could be counted on to take Laura's side, no matter what. Still, I figured I had nothing to lose by answering. "Hey, Jessica," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's up?" There was a pause on the other end, and then Jessica's voice came through, hesitant but concerned. "Mike, is everything okay? Laura called me last night, crying her eyes out. She wouldn't tell me what happened, but she sounded really upset." I clenched my fists, feeling a surge of anger. So, Laura was playing the victim card now, huh? Crying to her best friend while I was left here dealing with the fallout of her lies. "Yeah, well, maybe if you ask her about the guy she's been sleeping with, you'll get your answer." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "What are you talking about? Laura's cheating on you?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Yeah, she is. Or at least, that's what it looks like. I found messages on her phone from some guy named E, along with pictures of them kissing. And based on the conversation they were having, it sounds like they've been having sex for a while now." Jessica was silent for a moment, clearly processing what I'd just told her. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer this time. "I'm so sorry, Mike. I had no idea. Laura never mentioned anything like that to me." "Of course not," I muttered bitterly. "Why would she? She's been lying to me for months, probably longer. I don't even know who she is anymore." Jessica hesitated, then asked quietly, "Do you want me to talk to her? Maybe I can get her to open up about what's going on." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "No, Jessica. This isn't something you can fix. Laura made her choice, and now I have to make mine." There was another long pause, and then Jessica spoke again, her voice filled with genuine concern. "Mike, I know this is hard, but but please try to stay calm. Whatever happens, you deserve to know the truth. And if you need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. Even if Laura doesn't realize it, she cares about you too. I think deep down, she's just scared and confused. Her words hit me harder than I expected. Scared and confused? Was that really what this was about? Or was it just another excuse Laura was using to justify her actions? I appreciate that, Jessica, I said finally, my voice thick with emotion. But right now, I need to figure things out on my own. Thanks for reaching out, though. It means a lot. After hanging up with Jessica, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the wall. Her words echoed in my mind, she cares about you too. Did Laura really care about me, or was she just manipulating everyone around her, including her best friend? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. How could Laura do this to me? How could she betray me like this, after everything we'd been through together? And why did she even bother trying to hide it? If she wanted out of our marriage so badly, why didn't she just say so instead of sneaking around behind my back? My thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. I frowned, wondering who it could be. I certainly hadn't ordered room service, and I wasn't expecting any visitors. Cautiously, I approached the door and peered through the peephole. Standing outside was a tall, muscular guy wearing a hotel uniform. His name tag read Ethan, the same first initial as the mysterious E from Laura's messages. My heart raced as I unlocked the door and opened it just enough to peer out. Ethan gave me a nervous smile, his eyes darting around the hallway before settling on me. "Hi, Mr. Thompson?" he asked, his voice shaky. "Is Laura here?" "She, left her phone in the lobby earlier, and I thought I should bring it up to her." I stared at him, my blood boiling. So, this was the guy. The one Laura had been sneaking around with, the one she'd been having sex with behind my back. The nerve of him, showing up here like nothing was wrong. "No," I said coldly, my voice dripping with contempt. "Laura's not here. But I think you and I need to have a little chat." Ethan's face paled, and for a second, I thought he might bolt. But then he swallowed hard and nodded, stepping into the room. As I closed the door behind him, I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. "So," I began, my voice low and dangerous. "You're E, aren't you? The guy Laura's been cheating on me with." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting around the room like he was looking for an escape route. "Look, man, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It just sort of started." I crossed my arms, glaring at him. "Started? You call having sex with a married woman starting? What the hell were you thinking?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know it sounds bad, but Laura and we just connected, you know? She's been unhappy in her marriage, and we started talking, and one thing led to another." I laughed bitterly. "Unhappy? Is that what she told you? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like she's been leading a double life, playing the perfect wife at home while sneaking around with you whenever she gets the chance." Ethan looked genuinely remorseful, but that didn't make me feel any better. "I didn't know she was still married when we first met," he admitted. "She told me things were over between you two, that you were drifting apart." I believed her. I shook my head, disgusted. "Well, you were lied to, buddy. Just like me. Laura's been playing us both, and now we're both paying the price." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air, pressing down on both of us. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I'm really sorry, man," he said quietly. "I never meant to hurt you. If I'd known the whole story, I never would have gotten involved." I stared at him, my heart aching with betrayal. "It doesn't matter now. The damage is done. Laura made her choice, and now I have to make mine." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. "Yeah, I guess you do. Look, I'll leave you alone. Just, take care of yourself, okay? Without another word, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. As the door clicked shut behind him, I sank onto the bed, feeling utterly defeated. Everything I had believed in, everything I had worked for, was crumbling around me. And the worst part? I didn't even know where to begin picking up the pieces. I sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the closed door long after Ethan had left. My mind was a chaotic storm of emotions: rage, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. Laura had been lying to me for months, maybe longer, and now I was starting to realize just how deep her web of deceit went. As I replayed the conversation with Ethan in my head, something didn't sit right. He seemed genuinely remorseful, but his story felt incomplete. If Laura had told him that we were drifting apart, why had she continued to act like everything was fine at home? Why had she kept up the charade? I grabbed my phone and scrolled through our recent conversations, looking for any clues or inconsistencies. That's when I noticed something strange: a series of deleted messages from earlier in the week. My heart pounded as I realized what this meant. Laura had been covering her tracks, deleting evidence of her lies, but why go through all that trouble if things were really over between us? And more importantly, who else knew about her affair? My thoughts were interrupted by another knock at the door. This time, I was hesitant to answer. After the confrontation with Ethan, I wasn't sure if I could handle another surprise visitor. But curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously approached the door. When I opened it, I was met with an unexpected face: Derek, one of Laura's co-workers from the marketing firm where she worked. He looked nervous, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot. "Mike," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Can I come in? We need to talk." I stepped aside, letting him into the room. As soon as the door closed behind him, Derek turned to face me, his expression serious. "I know this is going to sound crazy," he began, "but I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this for a while now. Laura, she's not who you think she is." My stomach churned. Another revelation? How many more surprises could I handle? "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Derek took a deep breath, clearly struggling to find the right words. "Look, Mike, I've known Laura for years, ever since we started working together. At first, she seemed great, ambitious, driven, and always willing to help others. But over time, I started noticing things, little things that didn't add up." He paused, glancing around the room nervously before continuing. "Laura has a habit of manipulating people to get what she wants. She's been using her charm and good looks to climb the corporate ladder, but it's not just about work. She's been doing the same thing in her personal life too." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "You're saying she's been manipulating me? Using me?" Derek nodded slowly. "Yeah, pretty much. She's been playing both sides against each other, using you for stability and security while keeping guys like Ethan around for excitement. It's all part of her game." My blood boiled. So, this was it. Laura hadn't just been cheating on me, she'd been using me, stringing me along while she pursued her own selfish desires. The thought made me sick to my stomach. "But why?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. "Why would she do this to me? To anyone?" Derek sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because that's who she is, Mike. Laura thrives on control and manipulation. She enjoys the power she gets from having people wrapped around her finger. It's not about love or loyalty, it's about control." I clenched my fists, feeling a mixture of rage and despair. Everything I had believed about my marriage, about Laura, had been a lie. She wasn't the woman I thought she was. She was a master manipulator, someone who cared only about herself. "So, what do I do now?" I asked quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "How do I even begin to deal with this?" Derek hesitated, clearly torn between offering advice and staying out of it. Finally, he spoke again, his voice filled with genuine concern. "First, you need to confront her. Don't let her twist things around or make excuses. Make her face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Then, you need to decide what's best for you. Whether that means trying to work things out or walking away, only you can make that choice. His words hit me hard. Confront Laura? Face the truth? I wasn't sure I had the strength for that. But deep down, I knew Derek was right. I couldn't keep living in denial, pretending everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. Thanks, Derek, I said finally, my voice filled with gratitude. I appreciate you telling me this. It's not easy to hear, but I needed to know. He gave me a small, sympathetic smile. Take care of yourself, Mike. You deserve better than this. With that, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts once again. As I sat there, staring blankly at the wall, I realized that my life had reached a critical turning point. Laura had made her choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. The question was, what would I choose? I sat in the coffee shop, staring at the door through which Laura had just stormed out. My hands trembled as I gripped my cold coffee cup, my mind racing with conflicting emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion, they all swirled together, making it hard to think clearly. But one thing was crystal clear now: Laura wasn't the woman I thought she was. She wasn't the loving wife who cared about me, who wanted to build a life together. She was someone else entirely: a liar, a manipulator, and a cheater. And I couldn't let her get away with it. Not anymore. After what felt like hours, I finally stood up, tossing the untouched coffee into the trash. It was time to confront her again, this time, on my terms. I pulled out my phone and sent her a message, my fingers trembling slightly as I typed, "We're not done talking, Laura. Meet me at our apartment. Now." There was no response for a few minutes, but then my phone buzzed with her reply, "Fine. But this isn't going to change anything, Mike." Her defiance only fueled my anger. So be it. If she wanted to play tough, I'd show her just how serious I was. I drove home quickly, my mind still reeling from everything Derek had told me earlier. Laura had been manipulating people for years, using them to get what she wanted, whether it was career advancement or personal satisfaction. She didn't care about anyone but herself. And now, it was time for her to face the consequences. When I arrived at the apartment, Laura was already there, pacing back and forth in the living room. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and defiance. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The tension between us was thick, almost suffocating. "All right, Mike," she said finally, her voice sharp. "What do you want? What more can you possibly say?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. "I want the truth, Laura. The whole truth. No more lies, no more excuses. Just the truth." She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "You've already heard the truth, Mike. I made mistakes. I got involved with Ethan because I was unhappy. That's it." I shook my head, my patience wearing thin. "That's not it, Laura. That's not even close. You've been lying to me for months, maybe longer. You've been using me, manipulating me, just like you've been doing with everyone else in your life. Derek told me everything. He knows what you've been up to." Laura's eyes widened in shock, clearly not expecting me to know about Derek's involvement. "Derek? What does he have to do with any of this?" I clenched my fists, my voice shaking with anger. "He knows exactly what kind of person you are, Laura. He knows that you've been playing people against each other, using them to get what you want. He knows that you don't care about anyone but yourself." For a moment, Laura looked genuinely shaken, like she hadn't expected me to uncover the full extent of her deceit. But then her expression hardened again, and she gave me a cold, calculating look. "So what if I've been using people?" she snapped, her voice filled with venom. "At least I'm getting what I want. At least I'm not wasting my time with someone who doesn't give a damn about me." My blood boiled. How could she be so callous, so indifferent to the destruction she'd caused? "Get out," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. Laura blinked, clearly caught off guard by my sudden calmness. "What?" I said, "Get out. I can't even look at you right now." For a second, I thought she might argue, maybe even try to twist things around again. But then something shifted in her eyes. She must have realized how far gone this situation was. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. As soon as she was gone, I collapsed onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. My heart was heavy, weighed down by anger, sadness, and confusion. How was I supposed to move forward from this? Could I ever trust anyone again after this? Over the next few days, I started to piece my life back together. I filed for divorce, packed up my belongings, and moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't easy. There were moments when the pain and betrayal threatened to overwhelm me, but I knew I had made the right choice. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and deceit. As time passed, I began to heal. I focused on rebuilding my life, reconnecting with old friends, and finding new passions. Slowly but surely, the weight of betrayal lifted, and I found peace in knowing that I had done the right thing. Looking back, I realized that what Laura did wasn't just about infidelity, it was about control. She thrived on manipulation, using people to get what she wanted without any regard for their feelings. And while it hurt to lose her, I knew that staying would have only led to more pain and suffering. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, my advice is simple: trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Confront the issue head-on, no matter how painful it might be. And if you find yourself betrayed, know when it's time to walk away. Sometimes, letting go is the bravest and most necessary step toward healing. In the end, I learned that true love isn't about control or manipulation, it's about honesty, respect, and mutual effort. And while my marriage may have ended in betrayal, it also taught me the value of standing up for myself and finding genuine happiness. The door slammed shut behind Laura, and for a moment, the silence in the apartment was deafening. I stood there, staring at the closed door, my heart pounding in my chest. My hands were still trembling, but this time, it wasn't just from anger, it was from the overwhelming sense of finality that had settled over me. Laura was gone. For good, this time. There would be no more excuses, no more lies, no more manipulation. She had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I sank onto the couch, feeling utterly drained. The weight of everything that had happened over the past few days, no, months, crashed down on me all at once. The signs had been there, hadn't they? The late nights, the constant phone calls, the way she'd flinch whenever I tried to touch her. But I had ignored them, brushed them off as stress or work-related issues. How could I have been so blind? As I sat there, trying to process everything, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Derek again. How did it go? Did you talk to her? I sighed, running a hand through my hair. How could I explain everything that had just happened? How could I put into words the betrayal, the lies, the sheer magnitude of what Laura had done? But I owed him an answer. He had helped me see the truth, after all. We talked. Or rather, we argued. She's gone now. I'm filing for divorce. There was a pause before his response came through. I'm sorry, Mike. I know this isn't easy. But you're doing the right thing. You deserve better than someone who treats you like that. His words hit me harder than I expected. Deserve better? Was that even possible after everything that had happened? Could I ever trust someone again after Laura's betrayal? But then another thought crossed my mind, one that gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe, despite everything, I could find happiness again. Maybe I could rebuild my life, move forward, and find someone who actually cared about me for who I was, not just as a means to an end. Over the next few days, I threw myself into the process of separating from Laura. Filing for divorce was harder than I expected, both emotionally and logistically. There were papers to sign, meetings with lawyers, and endless discussions about dividing our assets. But through it all, I felt a strange sense of relief. Every step I took toward ending our marriage was a step toward reclaiming my life. Laura, for her part, seemed to retreat into herself. She didn't fight me on the divorce, didn't try to argue or negotiate. In fact, she barely spoke to me at all. It was almost as if she had already moved on, as if our marriage had been nothing more than a brief distraction from her real life, the one filled with Ethan and whatever other men she had been manipulating. One evening, as I was packing up some of my belongings, I stumbled across an old photo album tucked away in the back of a closet. It was filled with pictures from our early days together, our first date, our engagement, our wedding. As I flipped through the pages, memories flooded back, good memories, ones that made me smile despite everything that had happened. We had been happy once, hadn't we? Or had that all been part of Laura's game too? I stopped on a picture of us standing on the beach during our honeymoon, laughing as the waves crashed around our feet. We looked so carefree, so in love. How had things gone so wrong? How had we ended up here? For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. Despite everything, I couldn't help but wonder what might have been if things had been different, if Laura had truly loved me instead of using me. But then I shook my head, pushing those thoughts aside. There was no point in dwelling on the past. What mattered now was moving forward, finding a way to heal and rebuild. A few weeks later, I found myself sitting in a small cafe near my new apartment. I had started seeing a therapist to help me process everything that had happened, and while it wasn't easy, it was helping. Slowly but surely, I was beginning to understand that what Laura had done wasn't my fault, that her actions were a reflection of her own issues, not mine. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed with a message. This time, it was from Ethan. "Hey, Mike. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to apologize. I never meant for any of this to happen. I realize now how much pain I've caused you, and I'm truly sorry." I stared at the message, surprised by how sincere it sounded. Ethan had played his part in all of this, but he wasn't the one I blamed. That honor belonged solely to Laura. "Thanks, Ethan. I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. What's done is done." There was a long pause before his reply came through. "I get that. And I respect your decision. Just know that I'll always regret what happened. If there's ever anything I can do to make it right, let me know." I sighed, unsure of how to respond. Ethan may have been sorry, but that didn't erase the damage that had been done. Still, it was nice to know that at least one person involved in the mess had some semblance of a conscience. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to rebuild my life. I focused on my job, reconnected with old friends, and even started dating again, though cautiously. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of moments when the pain and betrayal threatened to overwhelm me. But I kept going, one day at a time. Looking back, I realized that what Laura had done wasn't just about infidelity, it was about control. She thrived on manipulation, using people to get what she wanted without any regard for their feelings. And while it hurt to lose her, I knew that staying would have only led to more pain and suffering. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, my advice is simple: trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Confront the issue head-on, no matter how painful it might be. And if you find yourself betrayed, know when it's time to walk away. Sometimes, letting go is the bravest and most necessary step toward healing. In the end, I learned that true love isn't about control or manipulation, it's about honesty, respect, and mutual effort. And while my marriage may have ended in betrayal, it also taught me the value of standing up for myself and finding genuine happiness. The months passed, and I found myself standing on the precipice of a new chapter in my life. It had been nearly a year since that fateful day in the coffee shop when Laura stormed out for the last time. The divorce was finalized, the paperwork signed, and the shared memories packed away like relics from another life. I had moved into a small but cozy apartment near the city park, a place where I could start fresh without the constant reminders of what had been lost. The first few weeks were difficult. Every corner of the new space felt foreign, every creak of the floorboards echoed with the silence of loneliness. But slowly, the walls began to feel less like barriers and more like boundaries between my past and my future. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the rhythm of daily tasks and the satisfaction of completing projects. My colleagues noticed the change in me, a newfound focus, a quiet resilience. They didn't know the full story, and I wasn't ready to share it yet. But their support, even if unintentional, helped me heal in ways I hadn't expected. Therapy became a lifeline, a safe space to unpack the layers of betrayal and manipulation that Laura had woven into our marriage. My therapist, Dr. Harris, was patient and insightful, guiding me through the labyrinth of emotions that still lingered. We talked about trust, about self-worth, and about the importance of not letting one person's actions define my entire sense of value. One afternoon, as we sat in her office, she asked me a question that stuck with me long after the session ended. "Mike, do you think you'll ever be able to forgive Laura?" I paused, considering her words carefully. Forgiveness wasn't something I had given much thought to. Anger had been my default response for so long, and while it had fueled my determination to move forward, it also weighed heavily on my heart. "I don't know," I finally admitted. "Maybe someday. But right now, forgiveness feels like a luxury I can't afford." Dr. Harris nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about releasing yourself from the burden of carrying that pain. You don't have to do it today, or tomorrow. But when you're ready, it might bring you peace." Her words stayed with me, lingering in the back of my mind like a gentle reminder. Peace. Was that what I was searching for? Or was it something deeper, something closer to acceptance? One evening, as autumn leaves swirled in the cool breeze outside my window, I received a message from an unexpected source. It was Laura. "Hey Mike. I've been thinking a lot lately, and I wanted to reach out. I know things ended badly between us, and I'm truly sorry for everything. I realize now how much I hurt you, and I regret it deeply. If there's any way I can make amends, please let me know." My heart skipped a beat as I read her words. Laura, reaching out after all this time? It felt surreal, almost like a dream. But as I stared at the screen, I realized something important. I no longer needed her apology. The wounds she had inflicted were healing, not because of her, but because of the work I had done on myself. I took a deep breath before responding. "Thank you for reaching out, Laura. I appreciate your apology, but I've moved on. What's done is done, and I'm focused on rebuilding my life now. I hope you find peace too." I hit send, feeling a strange mix of relief and closure. This was the final chapter in our story. There would be no more apologies, no more attempts to reconcile. It was over, and I was okay with that. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. I joined a local running club, started taking cooking classes, and even dipped my toes back into the dating pool. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt and hesitation. But each step forward, no matter how small, felt like progress. One night, as I sat on my balcony, watching the stars twinkle above, I reflected on everything that had happened. Laura's betrayal had shattered my world, but in its wake, I had discovered strength I never knew I possessed. I had learned that love wasn't about control or manipulation. It was about honesty, respect, and mutual effort. And most importantly, I had learned that I deserved better than someone who treated me like a pawn in their game. Looking back, I realized that the hardest part of my journey hadn't been the betrayal itself, but the process of healing and moving forward. It had taken time, patience, and a willingness to confront the painful truths about my marriage and myself. But in the end, it had been worth it. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, my advice is simple: trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Confront the issue head-on, no matter how painful it might be. And if you find yourself betrayed, know when it's time to walk away. Sometimes, letting go is the bravest and most necessary step toward healing. In the end, I learned that true love isn't about control or manipulation, it's about honesty, respect, and mutual effort. And while my marriage may have ended in betrayal, it also taught me the value of standing up for myself and finding genuine happiness. And so, here I stand on the edge of a new beginning, ready to embrace whatever comes next.